So we have a couple of different interests. So I did try and keep this presentation a little more general because it's for a couple of different directions. I did also hear we had, again, I wasn't quite sure who'd be coming. So target audience, I wasn't 100% sure what we'd have. So, it is, some of this might be, if you guys have been a couple of times to Europe, for some of you, I'm sure it will be some repeat stuff. But I did kind of want to start with a little intro about me. I guess the reason for that is like, why am I the guy to potentially talk to you about this? I mean, I'm just some guy, but I do have extensive travel experience. So I'm from Ohio, but when I was in high school, I did a year as a foreign exchange student in near Lübeck, Germany. And then in 2008 and 9, I spent the summers in Peru and Ecuador. I spent 5 months during my university. I went University of Alabama, but I did a semester abroad in Meknes, Morocco. Have extensive personal travel. After college, I spent a school year which is about 9 months, as an English teaching assistant in Spain. I did, I got to go to Harvard for grad school. Spent 3 months in Panama over COVID. So that was remote working. 2 summers ago, I received a U.S. Critical Languages scholarship to do Turkey, basically, to do some Turkish. So I think there's 16 languages mentioned by the U.S. government as critical for U.S. citizens to learn. So that would be Turkish, Azerbaijani, Arabic. Portuguese is one of them, Brazilian Portuguese specifically, Chinese, Russian, etc. And so they give out very generous scholarship programs to go and study those languages in those countries. The meetup group, I don't know if you know, it's sponsored by passionclass.co. Feel free to check us out. Of course, there at the end, we'll have a little plug there. But that's, I'm one of the founding teams of passionclass.co. And then right now, as I have mentioned, I am living in Vienna. I've been in Vienna for about 2.5 years. Oh, I should have actually had Belgium on this as well. Also last semester doing a lot of classes in Belgium in a computer science department. And here I started to study abroad and then actually ended up just transferring to the University of Vienna and completing an entire master's here. So this presentation is geared primarily, there's a lot of generally applicable things, but it is geared primarily towards the study abroad. I mean, as the title would suggest, but we can certainly go in a couple of different directions. And I meant to show all these. As I did this about me, I meant to show you the cool photos of all the places I've been. So this is Hamburg, Germany. This was I mentioned Peru and Ecuador. This is Machu Picchu. I'm sure this photo is not foreign to many of you. Absolutely beautiful. This is Meknes, Morocco. This is Vigo, Spain, which is the city I was living
We're
in.
not seeing the pictures.
Don't see your screen.
Oh,
You
I'm
didn't share the
sorry.
screen.
Oh, well, thank you very much for letting me know. I apologize for that. And by the way,
Yes.
at any point, if you have any questions or anything like that, please just interrupt. And this is also a meetup, so if we want to chat or whatever, please feel free to chime in. So as I mentioned, Meknes, Morocco, Vigo, Spain. This is where I was an English teaching assistant. That's Harvard. This is Panama City, Panama. Really beautiful, and amazingly, I was like, whoa, I did not expect Panama City to be this ultra modern. Obviously there's both, but Panama City is incredibly modern. This is from Ankara, Turkey. I also have I spent some time in Cote d'Ivoire as well, about 4 weeks in West Africa in Abidjan, which is actually the West Africans think of it as the Manhattan of West Africa, and it's pretty true. It's amazingly large city. I wasn't familiar with it before going, and as I mentioned, I now live in Vienna. So now you guys got the photos. What are we here really to discuss? I mean, so what I really wanted to share is standard cost categories for study abroad. I know we kind of have we all have different expectations and thoughts, but I think this is pretty fair. So I said 1,400 for airfare. I think that ranges between 1,000 and 1,600 is what people think of a round trip flight to Europe for on average. Food for 4 months or so, something like $750 to get your visa. Unless their LAX might or Los Angeles might have a consulate for, or excuse me, a embassy for certain countries. But I think a lot of us, if you're planning on spending some time in Europe, we think of a visa as an expense that you have to fly to New York or DC to get. And obviously, there's fees associated with that. While you're abroad, anyways, take some time to travel. If you're spending 5 months, 4 to 5 months in a country, you're obviously going to need to have a means of transportation while you're there. There's insurance, there's, Euro issues, and then your program costs. And so I wanted to show, I was looking up some study abroad programs, and these are not the most expensive that I've seen, but I did just look up, sorry, I did just look up, so you guys can also see my screen right now. Is that correct? Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So if we were to do like a CIE study abroad semester in Paris, and I had just pulled up the price, and I apparently my the starting price for a semester in Rome was $18,000. The semester in Paris was 20 through CIE. This was studies abroad. That's actually the program I did in Morocco when I was in college. Um, and so those program fees are really not small. Let's click on or somebody had just written in the chat they were interested in business. So let's look at the business and culture one. So this, here's a semester CIE program study abroad, and their costs are $21,000. Let's look at the breakdown of those costs. They basically say what's included in this $21,000. It's your tuition, it's your housing, and then basically most things are insurance related. If you have a homestay, you might get some meals, but other than that, it's your advising, your orientation, some excursion, some insurance, things like this. So, on-site staff if you need to write somebody. So the bulk of that $21,000 comes from these two, your tuition and housing. And that's why when I come back over here, back to, your cost categories, I have 18,000 for the program. I think that is a relatively representative number for a semester abroad. The only thing I've done here is broken that program out into two. So this program chunk gets broken into two because you essentially have tuition and housing here. And so we can address those separately. I do want to start with airfare, and because I think I have some pretty great secrets here. That this is the first thing I want to share with you guys if you guys are looking to save money. So airfare, let's take a look here. The first thing I want to show you guys is the Barclays American Airlines card, or basically I want to show you these four credit cards. I mean this completely honestly when I tell you that you can get free round trip flights to Europe, no exaggeration, by choosing the right credit card. And it sounds, I mean, I'm sure, most of us, I feel like in the US have there's some stuff that goes into picking a credit card, but these airline credit cards are incredible. And I promise you, no exaggeration, for essentially no cost on your part, they will cover the costs of a round trip flight just for opening a credit card. And it's not something that most of us know about. And so I do actually want to take a minute and look at it because it's one of those things that it will save you $1,000 or more. So here's the United credit card, and this is the one I have most recently. I've had literally all of these. Here's the United one in my pocket right now, or in my wallet. This United credit card, when you sign up for it, and again, I promise I am not working for any of these credit card companies. I have no interest in promoting their products. I'm just letting you know so this United credit card here, if you open this up, if you open up an account, the way it works is you get 50,000 bonus miles, and I'm going to actually show you in a minute exactly how much you get for 50,000 bonus miles. So 50,000 miles is essentially what you get when you open up a credit card. So if you don't cancel that card within the first year, you will get charged on day 365, $95. And then, essentially it has an annual charge of $95, but that first year is free. So you can get that completely free. 50,000 bonus miles, for example, with the United card. The United card, I was just here looking this up. Most of you guys, I believe, are in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken, or in the Los Angeles area. As I mentioned, I'm from Ohio, so I'm usually looking somewhere a little different. But we are going to change this to English, first of all, and then set this to Los Angeles, for example, in May. Flexible dates. Okay, April, that's fine. So that's this month. For example, searching from Los Angeles to Vienna right now, that's where I am. So that's why I'm using, I use Vienna kind of as a standard thing. So that's 30,000 miles and $39 or 43 and or here 30. So it's about $40 plus 30,000 miles. This card, you get 50,000 for signing up, but you also get a mile for every one. So to get you to Vienna, you'd actually have to open two cards to get you round trip to Vienna, there and back. But if you're a little bit flexible, and willing to do something like the more expensive flight is the international flight. And again, I don't know where your destinations are, and that actually makes a difference. I would recommend if you're thinking about opening one of these credit cards, I would recommend going on the respective company's website, so United, American Airlines, Delta, etc. Identifying essentially where your individual destination is targeted. Sorry, it's looking for London. It's loading slowly. Identifying where it is that you want to go. Oh, I must have looked Amsterdam for here. And I did London for the American Airlines. And identifying your destination and then figuring out which credit card you would get according to where you can get the most bang for your buck, aka where the mile price is cheapest. So I have United because United has an association with Austrian Airlines. That makes it pretty clear. Okay, I could swear to goodness that I had just looked at but that's fine. We'll leave this one for now. So you can get that one for 30,000 with United. So you can get a one-way plus a little more if you put 10,000 on the card, which is obviously a lot of money. But if you get that last 10,000 miles somehow, you'll have enough for a round trip. But I'm going to show you here with the American Airlines, because this is the one I must have looked up. I thought I looked it up on United. So we go to London, set this in April. I'm just choosing random dates. Redeem miles. Oh, you know what? Maybe I was logged in, because they also sometimes give you better deals if you're logged in here. See if that works out. Calendar. Okay, so round trip here, for example, is 54,000 miles and $195. This is American Airlines. American Airlines has a little bit higher prices than like a little bit lower miles, but $195 is not bad. This 54,000 miles, when you open the credit card, you get, for example, this credit card is 50,000 miles. I also have this one right now. They just added in that you have to pay the annual fee, because I got this about a month ago and I didn't have to pay the annual fee for the first year. I checked in today. It looks like you do now. So that's $100, but I'm going to show you something else for American Airlines. But so 50,000 miles, the way that all of these credit cards work, actually, this one is different. This one's literally you get the 50,000 after your first purchase and you get it right away. So if you were to be flying to Europe next week, I would tell you buy this card. You might have to pay the annual fee, but you could put $1 on the card and you'll get these 50,000 miles, which is almost enough for a round trip flight. Most of them, like the United one I had just mentioned, you have to put $3,000 to $3,500 in the first 3 to 4 months on the card, and you also get essentially one extra mile per dollar you put on there. It's really about the opening bonus, and it's not about the extra dollar. But the point is, at 54,000 miles, you have to put $3,000 on there in order to get this bonus. You put in one more thousand and you've got a round trip flight. The one I want to highlight to you right now is the American Airlines card, because as I was preparing for this 2 days ago, I discovered this again myself. The way these credit cards work, and I mean this honestly, I get free flights to Europe every single year. I get free round trip. I go home every year for Christmas. I get free round trip flights every time because there's four credit cards. There's the Delta Amex, there's United, there's United, the Chase United, there is this Citi American Airlines, and there is this Barclays American Airlines. So there's actually two American airlines. The Citi American Airlines has right now a $75,000, or excuse me, a 75,000 mile bonus if you put on $3,500 in the first 4 months. And by the way, you can also go ahead with that. You can, like, it doesn't have to be just you. Like if you want to talk to your parents or your kids or your friends and add them to your account, they can help you with that amount of money that, they can help you with spending, and it has to be somebody you trust to give you the money back. But you can, this is a realistic money, putting $900 a month on a credit card, for over a 4 month period of time. And this is more than enough for a round trip flight to Europe. And it's probably enough depending on your destination for 3 legs, a round trip and then a one-way back if you wanted. So that's my first trick. And I mean that honestly. I mean, if you're interested in thinking about getting free round trip flights to Europe, these credit cards are truly incredible. And as I mentioned, if you get all four, I don't recommend opening them all at once because you have to put on 3,500 within a certain amount of time. But if you open one, two a year, they have a 2-year program, and then you can cancel and then re-get the benefit. I get at least one round trip flight to Europe free every single year. And so that's the first thing I wanted to show. So I'm going to pause for a second and see if there's any questions. I know that was kind of fast. I, also want to be respectful, but that's the first kind of cross category that we can make a huge dent in. All right, I will continue then. So it is funny. I'm not used to doing these, I guess, Zoom sessions yet. This is my first one. And so it's a little foreign to me, but I hope this is, again, if you have any questions or anything like that, please just pause and let me know. So this is a smaller note. I jump into taxes and fees here for two reasons. The first is that the other thing about all four of these airline credit cards, which I have just mentioned, a lot of us, when we think, oh, I'm going to be going to Europe right now, I should go ahead and get some euros before I fly. In my experience, that is the wrong approach. And the reason for that is what the exchange rate that you're getting for the euros is really matters. Essentially, if you have a 10% difference in exchange rate, which you can absolutely, my bank, for example, in Ohio, if I were to try and get euros from its Citizens, but I don't think it's called Citizens. It's based in Boston. I think but it's Citizens Bank. I will pay at least 10% more for the euros than I would if I come to Europe and pull them either directly out of my account here, or even better, by far the best way to go is airline credit cards, but any credit card that doesn't have exchange fees almost always give you the daily market rate. So if you Google if you Google right now, what is the USD to euro conversion? This number is essentially what you're going to pay. I guess I need to do euro to USD. So you're going to pay $1.07, and that's what you're going to pay on the credit card almost exactly. Versus if you go to your bank and pull out pull out cash in advance, there's almost always an upcharge there. So your credit cards, in my honest, and I mean, I'm not trying to, but I did kind of give the little bit of my travel background to say my honest and extensive experience is that you will get the best exchange rates if you pull out money directly from your bank, including an ATM. ATMs frequently have a fee. There are certain banks like Schwab that reimburse those international fees. But those credit cards are also really valuable, or any credit card that's a travel-oriented credit card, such that you don't get charged those international fees, will save you 10% every time. VAT tax refund is something I think that we all know about, but none of us take advantage of. Basically, just super quick, and that's because I don't want to highlight this. If you spend more than 50 to 100 euros, depending on what your final destination country is or your departure country, is the country that you fly last from in order to fly back into the US. You'll get your tax refund, refunded, excuse me. So that in Europe, the VAT is 21% of your total purchase price. So that's not a small amount to do. If you purchase a laptop, for example, at €1,000, I mean that's $200. So it's something to really think about. But that's just a point I wanted to remind you of because a lot of people forget that. And I've forgotten that and planning to get that VAT tax refund. It's only eligible for large purchases. Your purchase has to be between a minimum of 50 to 100, and anything over 100 is always valid. But it's worth thinking about. I might
No,
skip this.
no,
Oh,
sorry. Question. So anything like above 50 or $100 can get VAT refund. Where do
mhm.
you get that then?
So so how that works is when you are leaving the European Union, the VAT is short for value added tax. And so that there, you don't get the value of that tax, and that's why they refund it in theory. Those are almost always at your point of departure. If you're departing via something like a bus, so for example, if you were taking a bus from Vienna to Serbia, because Serbia is outside of the European Union, if you were to take a bus from, for example, Vienna to Serbia, it is a little bit different, but usually it's in the airport. So it depends on your specific itinerary and point of departure. But if you're in the European Union, almost all airports will have it. Now, I would also say that if you're making a big purchase and this VAT is something that's important to you, um, think carefully where you depart from. That you want to depart, like Vienna is it's a high trust society, Austria, but there's some places where those VAT offices are just closed, and they do it intentionally because they don't want to give you that money back. But somewhere like usually it's in. So to answer your question, sorry, I gave you too much information there. To answer your question in a short way, it's usually the airport, but I would say Google it for the specific country that is your last country on your itinerary, and you can find out exactly where you can get that money refunded. All you need is a receipt, and you also need the item itself in the original packaging as you exit. So if you buy fancy clothes or you buy a laptop or anything like that, you need to bring the receipt and the item itself when you leave.
Quick
Okay, so
question.
so the airport work then mostly if I go to Europe and bought something expensive and just on my way back to the US, I should be able to get that at a major airport, correct?
Absolutely.
Where?
Absolutely. Any major
Okay.
airport.
Just a quick question. So you mentioned about the VAT being 21 or 22%. So when we get it back from the airport, I know I have done that through the automatic machine. Do we get it all back? I never did pay attention to it. All of it or just partial VAT?
My understanding, I guess I haven't followed up on that. My understanding is that you get all of the VAT refunded, 100% of value added tax, because in theory you don't get the value added because you're not a resident. So my
Yeah,
understanding is you're
but
supposed to get 100% of that back. If you got partial, I'd love to hear that information. But that's the first time I'm hearing that, and I haven't researched that specific question. So I've gotten the
that,
VAT refunded before, and I guess I just took it for granted that I didn't compare the percentage to the purchase price. My understanding is that VAT refunds are 100%, 100% of the VAT.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Again, I don't know what everybody here is looking, what people have in their mind specifically. I do know that Faye is interested in France, so this is definitely an opportunity to look into. But basically, these are just super quick, and I'm just throwing these out there because I think one of the concerns, as you think about what you can do in Europe, it's hard to job hunt in Europe, for example, or if you're not thinking about university specifically. So I just throw out a couple of ideas. I did this one in France, in Spain myself. I was an English speaking or an English teacher. They now get paid 1,100 euros a month, but they only work 12 hours a week, so it's not that bad. So this is an English teaching assistant. Foreigners in Spain. This is a language assistant in France. I don't know exactly. I did not do this. I have some friends who did it. I didn't do that personally in France. Um, I know there's a scholarship, this is also in Spain, that if you'll learn a small regional language called Gallego, which is in the province of Galicia, which is directly north of Portugal. It's not Spanish, but it's highly related. It's somewhere between Spanish and Portuguese. They'll actually pay all your living expenses to go there and study Gallego for a month because nobody in the world is learning Gallego. And you can find more information here. I'm just mentioning these are just some ideas. And I'll just go through them really quickly. I don't know if anybody here is a high schooler or knows a high schooler and was thinking about that because they're potentially a high school student. Think about doing Rotary International. That's who I did my foreign exchange student with, in high school when I was a foreign exchange student. I studied abroad in high school. Rotary International, my total program fees. Now this was 15 years ago, more than that. But my total program fees were like $1,800, and that included, my insurance and everything. So it was incredibly low. If you compare that to AFS, which is the #1 provider, the program fees were like $12,000, and I didn't think it was gonna be possible until I found Rotary International. Point is, I think Rotary is not only cheaper, it's also the best organization. When I got there, it's an international goodwill organization. As I mentioned, I was in Germany. They literally hand you they literally gave me $50 or €50 a month spending money, and they paid half of my excursions as well. So it was just, and I paid close to nothing to be a foreign exchange student with Rotary in high school. Again, I don't think most of us had that target audience, but I'm not quite sure who is here and who is looking to be here. But if you know any high schoolers who are interested in studying abroad, I mean that honestly. I did a lot of, I know a lot of people who have studied abroad. Rotary International is by far the best option for high school students. And then then I'm going to kind of switch my talk a little bit, talking about the university. What is the reason for that? Next, so we talked about the airfare cost, how to get this down. The big costs here are, of course, housing and tuition. And the reason I say that is because this is going on a typical study abroad program, semester abroad program cost. Even if you get a cheaper program of $15,000 or $14,000, and you can also spend more than this, what that's primarily covering is housing and tuition. Housing, of course, you're going to end up having to spend some money on. I think you can definitely get it cheaper than this, and I have specific thoughts, but it's, of course, location specific. Tuition, I can give some very general advice that can absolutely reduce this number from 9,000 to a lot less than that. So and I know actually I heard two people, or excuse me, I believe three people at least had specific interests in university in Europe. So that's great. This is the University of Vienna. This is where I go currently. I am a student at University of Vienna. As I mentioned, I studied abroad here, and now I go here directly. There's a couple of points I want to highlight here. So the first is there's a difference, of course, between whether you are a degree-seeking student at a European university and whether you are a study abroad student at a European university. So there's an important difference there in also what your tuition costs will be. I'm going to use University of Vienna as an example again, because that is my current base. University of Vienna. So I am pursuing a degree at the University of Vienna. That causes my tuition to be €795 a semester. And that's because I'm an international student. If you're a European Union citizen, that number is about €20 a semester. But as a international student, I pay €795, which is about $850. And that's so that at the end of 4 to 6 semesters, because I'm doing a master, at the end of 4 to 6 semesters, I will come out with a degree. The other option, and this is something that my brother did, my brother was in the other bedroom. He came and did 1 semester at the University of Vienna, and we lived together. My brother was a non-degree student, and so his tuition was 300, I believe it was €330. We will see actually right now. University of Vienna non-degree student. non-degree program, tuition fee, student union fee for non-EU citizens. This is 751, which sounds like to our a non-EU citizen plus a student union fee. This is the tuition that I was paying. I said 795. This is 751. I'm quite sure that my brother ended up paying in the 300s. And I'm sorry I didn't look up the exact web page, but you can Google it. And so the reason I mentioned that is I don't know what your specific thoughts are on what each of you want to do. But usually study abroad means one semester. If you want to save money, and this is the best way you can save money, if you are enrolled in an American university and then wish to do a semester abroad, you can enroll, forget a study abroad program, you can enroll directly in a European university for incredibly low tuition costs. So as I mentioned, it's at most at 700 euro, 751 euros, as you just saw. But my brother was here last semester, and I know he paid in the 300s for the entire semester at University of Vienna. That is true in most places across the continent. And the UK is no longer Europe. They do have much higher tuition prices. The Netherlands is a little bit pricier. But if you're looking Spain, France, Austria, Italy, Germany, anything like that, all of those have extremely low tuition. You just have to enroll directly in the university, which sounds intimidating, but is really not that hard. So I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions. And the reason, but again, I did want to highlight that. And the second option, of course, is that if you're actually thinking about pursuing a degree. Oh, and there's one other point I want to make before I continue here. So the other thing about this, the irony of this is the huge irony of these study abroad programs. And this is why now that I'm a little bit more experienced, I get mad about study abroad programs, is somebody wrote, I'm interested in, I can't remember what they said they were interested in. I'm going to look in the chat really quick. I'm interested in learning about French and business, for example. So as I looked up that program in the business and culture program in France, 21,000, and here's your courses. You have an internship, you have an economics, you have essentially 20 courses that you can choose from, which sounds pretty good. But if you come and enroll directly at the University of Vienna, for example, you have a choice of hundreds of courses, including taught in English. It's probably hundreds of courses taught in English that you can just enroll in directly and don't have to limit yourself to the number that are offered by some study abroad program. So your tuition is way cheaper. Your course selection is larger. As I mentioned, my brother was coming from Ohio State University. All of his courses counted towards Ohio State. I also started as studying abroad, and now I'm completing a degree. My study abroad semester, all of my courses transferred back to CUNY, City University of New York, no problem. So, that direct enrollment saves you a ton of money. Your course selection, your courses are longer, and there's not really any educational disadvantage to it. And they almost always include English in almost any country in Europe that you're thinking about, because that's how the Europeans communicate within themselves. So if an Austrian person wants to study abroad in France, if they know French, great, but the expectation is that the Europeans can kind of communicate within the European Union in English. It's the global language. And so almost all European universities will offer a broad selection of courses in English.
So
now,
Joe, I have a quick question for you. So as you do the search to figure out which school you can directly enroll, how do you start with your search? I would suppose you first need to target a country, maybe even a city? Or how do you start your search?
So what I would say is figure out where you want to go. My advice would be figure out what you care to do. Again, I made the delineation between, are you doing a semester or are you doing a full degree? You can get a visa for both, by the way, either one. So if you're just you're not even in a degree program in the United States, and you just say, I want to go have a semester in Europe and get the visa and have, 6 to 9 months just as a new experience in my life, and I don't care about getting a degree, that is also absolutely possible. But my point is to figure out what you need, what you care about. Because if you care to have, of course, specifically business courses, for example, then you're going to need to find a matching university, which is still not going to be hard. But what I would say is pick your destination. Pick your destination. Say, I want to go to Spain because I want to speak French. I want to French, Spanish. I want to go to Germany or Austria because I want to speak German. And then once you've picked your destination, not only country, but also city, then just find the local university because I don't want to guarantee for everywhere, but I can say that 70%, 70 to 80% of universities in Europe are going to have courses that are in English, opportunities for non-degree students, and absolutely there's not going to be any rules forbidding Americans to enroll directly anywhere. So I would say pick your destination and then let that direct you to whatever university you actually end up at. That would
Just
be
a
my
quick
advice.
question. That sounds really good. Based on your experience, did you know how to speak German when you first doing this direct enrollment, or you already spoke German before?
So when I enrolled directly at University of Vienna, I did speak German, yes. And that was a requirement for the degree program that I was in. My brother, as I mentioned, came to Vienna as well. He did not speak any German, not a single word, and he was also able to enroll directly at the University of Vienna and count all of his classes towards Ohio State. He took those classes in English. So all of my classes are in German. All of my brother's classes, however, were in English. So, speaking German is, and if your goal is to, but honestly, to be able to enroll directly in classes, you usually have to speak at least intermediate level, um, because it's taught in the language, so it's tough if you don't speak it. But if you do speak it, great. But if you don't, there's going to be a broad selection in English at almost any university at almost any university. So I happen to speak German, and my degree program is taught in German, and that was a personal goal for me. That doesn't mean, however, that that is a requirement or something that is assumed in any way or needs to be assumed on your part. And so I'll show you the University of Vienna catalog just really quick. One of the things I've discovered um, is that information is certainly organized well at the University of Vienna, but it is organized differently. I remember the first time I looked at this homepage, I was like, what is going on here? Like, this is so hard for me to understand. If I click on, here, this is the degree requirements for the bachelor in theology in Vienna. And I'm like, oh God, like, how does this work? Well, of course, one thing is, of course, change the language to English. That makes things a little easier. But even still, it looks a little differently. Europe is very similar to the US in a lot of ways, but things are slightly different. The plugs look a little different. The web pages look a little different. But with a little time investment, you can get it. So what I would recommend is you figure out where it is that you want to go. And so somebody said they were interested in business. So let me just come over to the economics section here. Click on Bachelor of Economics. This is the University of Vienna catalog. I know this from experience. All of these classes that are labeled EN are taught in English. So you can have a broad selection here: applied economics, applied econometrics, decision theory, feminist economics, financial statement analysis and business evaluation, history of economic ideas, and so on and so forth. All these courses are taught in English. Now, all these courses that are not labeled with that are taught in German, of course. But there's a broad selection. If you're interested, for example, in philosophy, let me come over to philosophy. Philosophy at the bachelor level, for example, the basic texts and decolonial theory, resentment, ressentiment, I think that's French, right? And resilience, exercise course in logic, arguing in philosophy, theory and ethics of personal identity, introduction to the ethics of robotics, blah, blah, blah. So even though the vast majority of courses here are in German, you've got a broad selection that are in English. And so and this is going to be true at a lot of universities in Europe, and the vast majority, I don't want to say all, but the vast majority in almost all universities that have a decent number of intra-European international students, anyone that is active in the Erasmus program, which is basically the European exchange program. They're going to have a broad selection of courses in English. And because that's the primary foreign language for Europeans as well. So don't let the, oh, I don't speak German, I don't speak French, I don't speak Spanish there's still plenty you can do as you learn in parallel at the university. And again, you're eligible for both types of tuition, either pursuing a degree, and there's plenty of degree programs that are fully in English, but you could pursue a degree or just do a semester, either get full credit for that in the United States. You should have no trouble transferring it. They are regionally accredited universities, of course, or you can just do it for personal enrichment. Any other questions before I move forward on the tuition point? But this is something I really did want to highlight, because this direct enrollment, I mean, the reason study abroad programs are able to charge this $18,000 a year or whatever it is that they're charging, it's at least going to be 14,000, 12 to 14,000 at least if you find a cheap one. That's because we are accustomed to tuition prices that doesn't sound like an extraordinarily expensive semester. You're like, oh, okay, well, I could either spend, 9,000 at, my university, or I could spend 18,000 and be in Europe. But really, the irony is you could go and save a bunch of money. It's just that it's not something that we think of. We look for the kind of the US study abroad programs, when if you just do a direct enrollment, you're going to be saving a lot of money, and this company is not going to be making that money. Cool. Okay, I will take the silence as a keep moving forward. So those are this tuition thing is really how you're going to save a lot of money, because then you can in direct enroll, you will save thousands and thousands of dollars. I do want to show you guys, I'm sure the experienced travelers are already familiar with this, but I do want to show you two websites really quick. I am going to so I'm in Vienna, as I mentioned. I'm going to Belgium. How have I been living in Vienna and taking classes in Belgium? And I'll show you how. Again, this is in German, so we're going to change this to English. So if I go to Brussels, it does not say Brussels. Here we go. Let me just do one way just to make the point and come in. I'm just choosing May, or let's do June. Because one of the tricks with these is you usually have to buy them somewhat in advance. Okay, I promise you, I just chose this date at random. A flight from Vienna to Brussels on June 13th is $21 or $22. On the day before that, it's $16. The day after that, it's $33. This is Ryanair. This and Wizz Air tends to have similar prices. This, if you are in Europe and you are flexible on your destination, or I say that Brussels is an outstanding destination. So occasionally, obviously, it's a company, their flights, occasionally they're not always this cheap. But if you are flexible on your destination, book your tickets in advance. A round trip flight for under $50 to other European cities is completely realistic. And so that's just something that I really quickly, Ryanair and Wizz Air, if you are not an experienced traveler in Europe already, those two names, and booking directly on their websites rather than Kayak. If you look on Kayak, they're still going to have super cheap prices, but they're not going to be quite this cheap because Kayak's making a couple bucks there too. Ryanair and Wizz Air, once you're already in Europe, is amazing. I will make two small comments here. The first is, this is why I think that with the airline credit cards, choose your destination carefully. And I'm sure when you come over, you've got a bunch of baggage, which adds to the cost of these. These are much better for short trips, excursions, rather than your first flight over. However, because intra-Europe flights tend to be so cheap, even if you're able to get a free round trip flight to somewhere that's not quite your destination, but you can get the second flight with Ryanair super cheap. Maybe when you first fly in, you spend 3 days in London, or you spend 3 days in Paris, or you spend 3 days in Amsterdam or whatever. Have an opportunity right up front to visit it, and then take that second flight over with Ryanair. And that's just because sometimes getting to Europe, you want to land in Vienna, but you can only get that free round trip flight to Amsterdam, and then you're going to have to spend the $50 with Ryanair to take you the rest that way. That's it's worth thinking about. Many travelers, if it's your first time, they don't want to do that, and I totally get that. I do totally get that, but it's just something to be aware of. But separately, Ryanair and Wizz Air for excursions are amazing. That now, without paying an extra fee, you only get on both of these, you get to travel with a backpack. So I have a nice big backpack, but I'm already a little bit pushing it. In theory, you have to be able to get it fitting under the seat in front of you. They're not the most comfortable. They view it as a bus, but you can really have the opportunity to see a lot of Europe. Thanks to these, in my opinion, thanks to these two companies, because it keeps your costs really low.
Quick question for you. When you find Ryanair, for example, those really big overhead luggage, they're probably in the US, they're probably not going to fit into their size, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is my point. So you are limited to a backpack. You are limited to a backpack for this price. If you want, you can bring, of course, any size luggage that you want. You're just going to have to pay for it. So if you want a typical stand carry-on bag to come with you as well, I think it's like $40. I'm honestly not sure of that. I think it's like $40. If you want a check bag, you know what? I can't tell you honestly, because I use this personally for my weekend excursion. So if I want to go somewhere on a Thursday and come back on a Saturday, or go somewhere on a Thursday and come back on a Sunday, these are really amazing. These are really amazing websites. I don't know exactly how they work for where you're traveling with a lot of baggage. So they may not be the best option then. And I just genuinely don't know that. I do have other tips on excursions, but I'm gonna leave them for now. We did have a question here on picking the right country. So I do want to address that really quick. So two things. So this photo on the left is somewhere that can anybody recognize this photo? I would not have been able to. This is Tbilisi, Georgia. Not so, it is on the European continent. Georgia, I'm going to actually pull up a map of Europe here. It's not somewhere that people would know usually, because it's not in the European Union. It's former, so it's over here. So my understanding is that the continental plate, the tectonic plate under Europe, essentially goes it kind of ends right through. Tbilisi is like right on the border, but technically Georgia is in the European continent, according to whatever that's called, tectonic plates, or the geological features that make it a continent. Same with Turkey, even though not all of us think of Turkey, Turkey as Europe. So I throw that out there because I think that there's a lot here to think about. Yeah. So somebody said, how do you pick what university to go to? As I mentioned, my approach here, and this is just my opinion, but I'm throwing this out here to help you, or I say help you. I'm throwing it out here, so you take it for what it's worth. This is just one guy's thoughts here. But if you're thinking about having a longer experience in Europe, so that means something like longer than a couple of weeks vacation, I would say figure out what it is that you want that experience to be. Are you focused on learning a language, or does that not really matter to you? And I think if some of us are honest with ourselves, like I love the languages personally, but I think if a lot of us are honest with ourselves, learning the language is not always the most important thing. Do I want to have this kind of opportunity to enroll at a university so that I come in contact with, so I have the opportunity to meet people and come into contact with people? Or would I rather do something like, they have woofing, which is working on organic farms, being an English teaching assistant? What is this experience? What is it that I want the experience to be? And that's kind of the starting point I would take, and try and take some time to think about it. However, the second point of advice I would say there, and I also find looking at maps very helpful, but that's me personally. The second point of advice I would have there, however, is, having some experience is better than having no experience. And what I mean by that is, if you think like, hey, this is something that really interests me, and it's something that I think I want to do, and you just signed up for this meetup group because it was on the internet, and you're not really planning to go to Europe, but now you're thinking, well, hey, if I can enroll as a non-degree student at University of Vienna for 3 months or 4 months and take a couple of classes, I'm not at university, but it's $400, like, I do that, then let that be your experience too, and let that guide you. That there's an opportunity for a couple $100s to be a non-degree student at Vienna, and you can get cheap round trip airfare. And Vienna's a beautiful city. I can absolutely recommend it to all of you right now. Let that guide your experience as well. Pick the right country, but also let the flow guide you and move forward. The other thing I would say is, if I'm allowed to throw this out there, I find Google imaging where you're thinking about going so helpful, because I mean, Vienna, this is a gorgeous city. You learn that from Google Images in about 3 seconds. There's another city, the city that I'm studying abroad in Belgium is called Charleroi. Now I'm interested in that partially because I'm interested in theology, and I'm also interested in poverty. It's actually quite a poor city in Europe. Looking at the Google image photos to Charleroi, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and do a little social work and work with the church. You do kind of realize a little quicker that it's not quite as beautiful as the city as Vienna from the photos. And obviously what you see here is the best photos. So, Google Images can be a very quick way to also get an impression of somewhere that you're thinking about. Okay, two other things. So we talked a little bit about language. We do have the meetup group that we have here has a Hungarian intro to Hungarian class, also completely free. On the 27th, if you have any interest in Budapest is outstandingly beautiful. I can tell you that. It's not far from Vienna. I've been a number of times. It is such a beautiful city. It's in my Europe top 5. It's not somewhere most of us think about, but it is so beautiful. So I really recommend, if you have any interest in Budapest, there's a free 2-hour learn a little bit of Hungarian class on April 27th that you can think about. We also have a Spanish class coming up. It is actually not yet scheduled in the meetup group. It's going to be the same thing, free 2-hour session with a native speaker to learn some Spanish and just do a little bit of Spanish. I think it's going to be for intermediate speakers. I will be posting that shortly. One other thing I want to let you guys know, I think this is an important thing to keep in mind. So I do want to make a quick word on anti-Americanism. If you come to Europe, there is no doubt it will be a part of your experience. Assuming that you are an American citizen, it will be a part of your experience. It's unavoidable. Yeah, and I guess this is mostly true for white and Black Americans. If you are Asian American, or there's certain ethnic groups that the Europeans might not, I think this is fair for me to say that many Europeans would not view that as like real Americans or something, and so it might not be quite as strong a part of your experience. But if you don't, and that may also be a part of your experience. I've seen it both ways. I'm just letting you know this because I think that if you're actually thinking about coming to Europe and spending any time here, it's something that I wish I would have known before I came, so that you kind of have the opportunity to find a half an hour to think and reflect how you want to deal with it. There's a lot of good and bad. I have learned so much on this continent, and I'm incredibly grateful. I'm also very grateful because it has, I have encountered anti-Americanism is a part of my daily life here. That doesn't mean that most people are not lovely to me most of the time. That's not at all what I'm saying. It's all over the world that most people are lovely to most people most of the time. And I think that's, but I do want to encourage you to think how you, to be aware of it. So the opportunity to kind of prepare in advance, both so that you're not shocked, and also that you can figure out how you'll potentially handle it. My response at this point, after multiple years on the European continent, is to wear my red, white, and blue. I do not necessarily, I certainly criticize no one for that not being your approach. It is also strange in the times of President Trump, who is not my personal favorite president. But at the same time, I also would personally rather have Donald Trump elected 10 times than Hitler once. So, you can kind of reflect on these issues, and I'm just letting you know in advance, because if you come here either for a short trip or an extended period of time, that experience will be a part of your experience, and so it's just something to think about.
Sure. So what
Are there
kind
any questions?
sorry, a question. So what kind of behavior like you will encounter in terms of anti-Americanism?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say there's different things. I would say, I've definitely had. I don't want this to be like a focal point either, but I actually I should be more comfortable talking about this. Absolutely. So, certainly, just I would say things like rude comments are something that you're going to hear. I mean, you're definitely going to have. This was yesterday. I was speaking to a friend of mine on the train in English on my cell phone, and the people in the whatever it's called, the seats across the aisle were kind of mocking my accent. That's just an example. I have also had you definitely have a lot of people who I would say one of the big things in this is there's a narrative of history that the US is very, very a bad place. And that narrative comes across a lot. I mean, you're going to hear, you'll hear a lot of political talk about Donald Trump. But that was part of my experience prior to, I was a foreign exchange student in high school. That was well before the Trump years. Um, so, there's a lot of, I don't know, criticism of things like, even people like, Elon Musk, why is this man allowed to send things in outer space? Shouldn't that be done by the government? It's just, I mean, and that doesn't sound like anti-Americanism, but I think it really is. So I didn't answer that question very well. I think what I would tell you the truth is rude comments. I think you will have people who don't want to talk to you all the time. If they discover where you're from, they'll be less inclined to talk to you. And also care to kind of make you hear a narrative of history that is negative without any reflection on what a year like a potentially very colonial European history. So was that a fair answer? I know I didn't wasn't.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm sorry I didn't answer that better, but I think it's something to be aware of. I would just say rudeness. Really, the word I would look for there is rudeness. So you guys have heard a lot from me. We are approaching the end. I only have two more slides. A bit of advice from an experienced traveler. So we've talked about language. If you are interested in language, take a language class before you come, because we all say we're going to actually do it. Because if you get here and you don't speak any German, for example, or you don't speak any French, or you don't speak any Spanish, or you don't speak any Dutch or any Italian, people say, oh, I'll learn it through being there. Once you have a basis, you can learn through being there. But if you can't say, where is the store? How do I get to the store? You don't have that ability to engage in conversation with people, so that you then don't have the ability to improve either. If you start from nothing, you really need to learn that first bit in a class setting. I mean, truly, because if I come to you and I can't say anything to you, how are you going to teach me any English? And it works the same way in any other language, of course. So if you don't know how to say anything, nobody's going to have any interest in talking to you in that language. They will have interest in you talking to you in English, and they're going to have interest in talking to you in English either way, because most of you, I think, maybe all of you, are native speakers of English, and so that's something that they're going to be very excited to practice with. So if learning a language is a goal for you, taking 1 to 2 language classes, but especially just that one before you come, makes such a difference, and it will make such an impact on whether you have the ability to even get started, get your foot in the door in order to practice more. That's my honest experience, and that's very true. In the Netherlands, I've been to the Netherlands a bunch of times now. I've never done the language class, and every time I just rely on English. And I'm like, if I would take a language class in Dutch, at this point, I've spent enough time in the Netherlands that I would speak Dutch, but I don't do it because they all speak English. Second thing, I would say prep the basics of modern politics in whatever country you're going to. So for example, Germany, I was a foreign exchange student there in high school, as I mentioned. So World War I is kind of the 1918 time period. Then you have the Roaring '20s, Great Depression in Germany, very similar to the United States. World War II time frame, most of us know the basics of the history there. What happens after World War II in Germany? Basically, the Allied powers, which includes the Soviet Union, divide the country into four parts. So you have the I think the American portion was down here. I can't actually remember, but you have the French, the British, the American, and the Soviet portions of Germany. It gets divided into four territories. Um, After a couple of years, the Americans, the British, and the French decide to allow Western Germany to become a reunited country. The Soviets do not agree to that. So then you basically have this dual history in Germany, where you have two countries. You have West Germany and East Germany. The US then implements the Marshall Plan because after World War II, Western Europe is in rubble. And so it's essentially a gift of several $billion in 1950s dollars to Western Europe so that they can rebuild their economy. And Western, that is not extended to Eastern Germany, or is actually not allowed to be extended to Eastern Germany because that's under the sphere of influence of the Soviets. With this Marshall Plan money, the Western Europeans essentially rebuild, become very wealthy countries again, and you have this wealth differential between West Germany and East Germany. That continues. In 1989, the Soviet Union begins to collapse. The Berlin Wall falls, and the Germans, for the first time, they've been completely separated by the Iron Curtain. That is the Soviet Union's influence. And the Soviet Union did not allow East Germany to flee to West Germany, or leave the country, essentially go west. And so so that ends in 89, or the Berlin Wall falls. There's this, like, Germans are like hugging each other in the streets, like, oh my goodness, families have been separated for 30 years because they're not allowed to cross because of the Soviet Union, not allowed to cross the border. There's suddenly bananas in East Germany because they are able to have contact with these countries that are further west. Basically, at this point, France, the United Kingdom, but particularly France, is very skeptical of allowing, at this time of the point of the fall of the Soviet Union, West Germany and East Germany to be reunited, because then Germany, which was two countries, will suddenly have a population of 80 million, will be the strongest country in Western Europe again, where it used to be France, while there was two Germanys. And so, but the US and the UK talked them into it. West Germany and East Germany become reunited. Even until today, East Germany is less wealthy than West Germany, as part of the legacy of the Soviet Union in the country. That was a 2-minute history of the history of Germany in the 20th century. See if you can find and spend 1 hour and know the basics of history about wherever you're going to go. If you can get a summary like that on YouTube or something like that, YouTube is so much better than Wikipedia because we actually keep the information and it doesn't give too many details. You are going to be a representative of the US if you go abroad, whether you want to be or not. You are going to be. And so, having that basic background allows you to engage, I think, with people in a very different way. And I think it has a big effect on your experience. And then finally, I'm sorry, I know I've been talking a lot, but we are wrapping up. So my final piece of advice is, if this has spoken to you at all, if this is something that you've been thinking about, or even if you haven't, if this is something that's speaking to you, you can book the ticket. If you have a passport, the one thing you need first is the passport. But if you have the passport, you can just book a ticket. And once you have the ticket booked, you're going. And then you can look at enrolling in the university, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm not saying that that's really necessarily the 100% the best way. If you hear this and you're like, yes, I will follow these steps such that I enroll in the university, then great. Then you're a superhuman, and that's great. And you should do it that way. But for most of us, we procrastinate. We have this idea, should I do it? Should I not do it? Commit yourself to doing it. If it's something that you're thinking about and it's speaking to you, and it's been something, I mean, I'm not saying today, right? Unless this has been something that you've been thinking about for a while. But if you start thinking about this today, and it's something that, it sits with you, 2 or 3 months later, you're still thinking about it, then get the credit card, or don't even get the credit card if you can afford it. Book it on Kayak, book the ticket, and then you're going. And then you'll figure out once you have the ticket, you'll figure out a way to get enrolled at the university. But if you don't have the ticket, you might push it off, and if we all want those opening experiences in our lives, and so my real advice is you can figure it all out later. Don't prep, but don't over prep, or book a ticket, book it for 3 months out so that you know that you're going in 3 months, and then you'll prep in between. And that's my spiel for now. I'm going to pause here again. Any comments, questions, anything like that?
Quick question. Any recommendation for like a continuous learning for any particular language, hopefully free?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Any recommendation for resources learning language on a continuous basis, hopefully free?
Of course, we all know about Duolingo. We all know about so the honest truth is, I'm going to tell you my honest truth, and the answer to that is I don't know of any really good free things. So I am founder in passionclass.co. So we have language classes. There's certainly things I would say Google it if you're looking for totally free resources. I'm a very relationship driven person. So I'm somebody who learns a lot better and actually love languages. Part of the reason I love languages is how you practice language is just interacting with other people. And so I'm a very relationship driven person. So I think that I personally strongly believe in taking language classes in a class setting. That's also how I have gotten started in quite literally all of my languages. Is that true? Yes, that's true. And so, I just really believe in it, and it works. And I also am not somebody who I have Duolingo on my phone. I have Mango on my phone. That's another one you can look into. I don't use them because, but I do, if I have a language class, I do it. So, if you're interested in language classes, there's Passion Class where a Turkish is coming on there. We potentially have Dutch. If somebody's interested in Dutch, I would say send us an email or send me an email. So I also have this class on here. This is a shameless plug at the end of the session, really quick. If you guys want to, so I have given you a very full overview of, in this completely free, like I'm not really withholding much. I'd have some fine-tuned stuff it's not that I'm withholding anything. It's I told you truly most important things that I see first. So you've gotten you got to do it yourself, but this is the tuition and the airfare, for example, are very important. Ryanair is very important. So you have the opportunity to travel and learn a lot on your own. If you wanted to sign up for this class, what would this be? It's 5 hours in total on 2 Saturdays. What it would be is looking at the specifics of what your situation is. I want to go to Spain. I want to go to France. I want to go to Austria. I want to go to Germany. And I would kind of help you in a live setting. I do speak all of those languages, for example, and read fluently in all of those languages. I can help you say, okay, you say, I want to go to Spain. Where's somewhere that I can go to what are my university options here? What are the requirements look like for this university as a non-degree student? What do they look like this student as a degree student, stuff like that. So I would be there and could help you. That's kind of what my vision is for it as a class. If you're interested in signing up for that, and just I am going to. I'm also an engineer, so I can adjust that price. I'm going to, for the next 2 hours after we end this, I'm going to lower the price by 50% for 2 hours. So if this is something that's spoken to you and you want to sign up for it, feel free to sign up in the next 2 hours. Your total price, including the fees of the Passion Class fees, would be reduced from 100 to 50 if you sign up in the next 2 hours. But that's separately. We also have languages on there, and I'd be potentially talking about some of these smaller ones like food. The visa, I think, is tricky for some people. Talk about things like that, specific insurance stuff. But other than that, it would be more about your having the opportunity to kind of live with me. Say, how can I work through? I'm interested in going to France. Can we look at universities together in a live context? The answer would be yes. So that's where we are. PassionClass.co. Even not, check us out, because that's a new startup. A US based company, but I may switch it to Vienna if that works out with my visa. So any questions there before we wrap up?
Hi, this is J. Joe. Thank you so much. It's very knowledgeable. I got a quick question on Spain. Do you have some kind of tips, advices if you're going to Spain?
So one thing I would say for Spain, this program, I don't know if you are looking for at the university or post-university context. I did this program. You can literally Google these words: auxiliares de conversación extranjeros en España. Um,
Yes.
this program. I believe the current salary is, as I mentioned, is 1,100 euros a month, but you only work 12 hours a week. And you're an English teaching assistant. So that's something that I would say for Spain. This program, the advantage of this program is that it's first come, first serve. So I believe it just opened in March. So essentially, if you apply now, for example, and you could certainly decline it later, but if you apply now, you're almost guaranteed a place in it. So it's almost guaranteed that you get a place in it, because it's first come, first serve. So and there's no further requirements than that. You need to have I think a bachelor's from a US degree, excuse me, a bachelor's degree from the US. But other than that, it's a guaranteed thing. Other than that, my other advice, if you're interested in Spain, Jay, is to really do Spanish. Spanish is, some languages are hard. German is harder than Spanish. Spanish, I mean, any language is hard, don't get me wrong, but Spanish is a learnable language. Spanish is one of the most learnable languages. So it's a language. So it's still hard and it's still going to take time. And to get a high level, it's going to take years, but it's a language that is achievable and doable. So that would be my advice for Spain. And Spain is
Yeah.
not expensive. Spain is not an expensive country. So Spain, it's not the greatest place to work. Salaries are not that high in Spain, but living costs are quite low. So if you're able to go from savings, use some of these tricks, but if you're able to go from savings, Spain is a very low cost of living country for the standard of living that you get.
Yeah, I have a question here. Does a non-degree program in Europe count for anything in the US university?
And so absolutely. So to answer the question, yes, it does. So if you work through a study abroad, it would count towards a US degree program at most US universities. So if you do a semester abroad in Europe, like University of Vienna, for example, and you enroll as a non-degree student, then you will receive credit for those. You will receive credit at the end of the semester. If you do a non-degree, that's the reason the tuition is cheaper. In a European university, those credits can never count towards a European degree. However, they can absolutely count towards an American degree. And as I mentioned, my brother did it himself. So absolutely, that would just be transfer credit essentially. So to answer that question, I want to make sure I say this honestly and correctly. So I know that if you talk to a study abroad department first, if you're already enrolled in a US university, and then enroll, that would be my recommended path for a semester abroad. Don't enroll in a study abroad program through an expensive company. Enroll directly as a non-degree student at a European university and then send the transcript back at the end. If you talk to your study abroad department first, 100%, those credits will transfer back. And I would think that in the vast majority of cases, I would think in the vast majority of cases that those credits, if you enroll in a US degree program later, those could come in as transfer credits, but I certainly can't guarantee that either.
Okay, thank you so much. That's so cool.
Any other questions?
So, yeah, how do we sign up your class if we want to?
Absolutely. So let me show you right here. Thank you for asking that. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. So passionclass.co is the website. Sorry, this is in German. I do have my computer set to German. It's a good way to practice. So passionclass.co is the website. It's not .com. .com would have cost us $500,000. .co cost us 10. So that's why we're passionclass.co. But anyways, so let me look here for a second. So let me just Google it, or study abroad here. So in the search box, click in study abroad as an American in Europe. It says $85 right now. I don't want to share that on my screen though. It'll say total course price of $100. Let me actually do this live. I'm gonna do it on the monitor that you guys can't see. Yes. Okay. So the price has now been updated. So it's going to be It's going to be $50, including the fee for the this fee. So I make 42 and the company makes 750 for the next 2 hours. If you guys want to do that, you can think about it. It's really designed to be a gift saying thank you for here. So that's how you do it. You come to passionclass.co, click on the study abroad, and then book your seat. And then I'm also going to write in the chat my email really quick if anybody has any questions. But you can also reach me via the you know what? No, I'm actually not supposed to do that. You can reach me via the meetup. I am the organizer. And by the way, if anybody has a class they want to teach, feel free. We are new. We are just getting started. But let me write my email here. Oh, I see there's questions here. I'm going to read these really quick. I want to learn French and business. There are language groups on Meetup. There you go. Or we have Spanish here. We have Hungarian. I'm doing English, but you guys all speak good English. We have French. As I mentioned, if you're interested in Dutch or Turkish, those should be coming very soon. And if you're interested in anything, a specific language, I mean, we're a young company looking to grow. So we will track down a language teacher if there's a language that you're interested in. German I should get because I'm in Austria, but I'm seeing here, is there any questions I didn't answer? Oh, cell phone service in Europe. That is very cheap. If that was a question, you can get that for my cell phone plan in Austria is 10 euro a month. What is language of teaching? It is English and German. Yes, you pick up the feeling I've got here. I'm so sorry I didn't read these. Do I have any tips with cell phones? Yes, get it. Don't get my tip with the cell phone is absolutely get a European SIM card. So come here. If you don't feel comfortable your very first week, having a, not having cell service for the first week, I get it. Actually, I'll say two things to that point. I feel so strange just talking like this. So, but I hope I'm being helpful. This is for Eduardo, who asked, do I have tips with cell phones? So my cell phone service here is 10 euros a month. And that includes data in the entire European Union. That I think that Austria has good prices, but cell service in Europe is cheap. However, if you have T-Mobile, and I don't know, there's probably other plans in the United States as well, and I'm not sure what they are. But my T-Mobile plan, I pay $25 a month as part of a thing that I'm on with my family. I have not gotten rid of it because anytime that I go in literally any other country, anywhere, including when I went to West Africa, I showed you Abidjan, including West Africa, in that $25 a month, I get unlimited data that's 3 to 4G. 3G is pretty slow. 4G is manageable. And in Austria, I get 4G here. I do use more than 5 gigabytes a month. And so that's why I'm willing to pay the 10 euros a month. But if you have a T-Mobile plan, my plan that I pay $25 a month for, so you'll have to convert that to your plan. I get free international data included in that. So your plan may already include a little bit, but if not, if you get here, a SIM card's like $10, maybe $20. I'm not quite sure. And 10 bucks a month will get you very fast internet. So I would say get a European SIM card. Any other questions?
No, that's it. Thank you very much, Joe.
Cool. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And if anybody is also interested in learning about specific things that you want to have classes on, like in the free meetup group, let us know, because we're also, I'm interested, I'm reachable on Meetup. I posted my email in the chat. We want to be offering, both free and obviously, the startup is for online courses, which are paid. But both the free and the paid courses, we want to be offering what people want to learn about. So if there's things that you guys want to learn about, please, please, please let me know, either via Meetup or that email.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.